the South Coast Air Quality Management District is now in session. Today is Thursday, December 29th, 2022. The last time that we're meeting for the year. It's just after 9 a.m. We are still meeting remotely via Zoom due to the mandates in place still from the governor's office, as well as the fact that the hearing board room at the AQMD is not yet open to the public. Today we have before us one item, that of the LADWP case number 1263-76 for a regular variance. This is regarding permit condition D82-3, Rule 203B, 218D2A, B4C, 2004, 3002 C1, and these are from the AQMD rules and regulations. And who will be representing LADWP?
Good morning. My name is Tina Shim. I'm a deputy city attorney, and I have one witness scheduled, Ian Guthrie. But just to be on the safe side, if we are swearing in witnesses, we're going to go ahead and add Wayne Madden and Andrea Villarin as well.
Okay, thank you. And on behalf of the executive officer?
Good morning, Sherry Hani Zavara on behalf of the executive officer.
Thank you. Okay, let's go ahead and number our exhibits. Within the actual permit, or I should say the petition from the respondent, or I should say the petitioner, we have within that document, there are 4 actual exhibits, and I'm going to go ahead and list them. Number 1 would be the photo of Unit 15. Number 2 is the GE Power Systems LMS 100 brochure. Number 3 is the photo of the damaged supercore in Unit 15. Number 4 is boroscope, I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly, inspection report. And number 5 is the correspondence with GE Power Systems. And on behalf of the district, we have the proposed conditions. Okay.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
There was an email from the petitioner correcting some of the applicable rules.
Okay, I don't have that. Let's go ahead and add that as number 6.
And because I think you cited some of the rules, they had actually corrected those.
Okay. Okay. Do you have the date of that email, Mohan, by any chance? Does anybody have the date of that email? Teresa, do you have that?
Oh,
Madam Chair, it was dated December 21, and it came in about 5:09 p.m. So more than likely it was sent to you all on December 22nd.
December, okay, well, let's see.
And the email is from Andrea Villarin, just for reference.
Okay, I have a December 21 at 11:12 a.m., but I don't think that's it.
Yeah, Madam Chair, I just forwarded it over to you for the
Thank
second
you.
time. Yeah,
Thank
just
you,
so
Lily.
no problem.
I appreciate that. I'll tell you, I've been experiencing, sometimes I don't get an email or even phone messages sometimes up here that I think I've shared with you, the service is not that good. And I won't get something till like a day later or 2 days later. There it is. Okay. All right, as I mentioned, we're going to go ahead and number that as number 6. And as stated within the body, that they had originally cited 218D2A. And so they're adding Rule 218B2. Okay,
I was just going to bring up that I think the public notice is 218, but I think it should be okay because it's subset of, it's 218.1 and so forth. But the
Okay.
public,
okay. All right, with that. Thank you for those corrections, board members. Okay. With that, we can go ahead and go to the oath. Any of your witnesses, both from the petitioner and or the district, if you can please raise your right hand. Okay, and if you can appear also so that we can see you. Okay, do you swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that you will be telling the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Okay, we can go ahead and start with the petitioner's opening statements.
Great, thank you. So I just wanted to first thank everyone for their service. I know we're in between a holiday, just finished a holiday, about to start one. So thank you for hearing us at this late time. So I hope that if this is a fairly straightforward variance, essentially one of the units at Haynes Generating Station suffered a catastrophic failure in an integral part of the machinery called the supercore. It damaged, it became damaged, and as a result, damaged other parts while it was running. With all the issues going around globally with supply chain services and all of the things, unfortunately, the repair schedule for this supercore will take until the end of February. And because of that, DWP will be unable to complete the necessary tests required under our permit with South Coast Air Quality Management District. For that reason, we were required to submit this variance in December to make sure that we obtained this variance and didn't miss that testing date. Even once DWP is able to receive that fixed supercore, it'll take probably about 6 weeks of additional repair to have the unit running again. For that reason, we've asked that the next test date that we're required to complete is for the end of the second quarter, which is the end of June. And we feel confident that we should be able to do that. Our staff has carefully reviewed the proposed conditions provided by South Coast Air Quality Management District. And we feel confident that we can meet all of those additional requirements. And so I just want to make super clear that the unit is not running. So the unit has not been running since August. It will not be running for quite some time. We will have all the emissions testing equipment operating and running, so it'll show that sort of those zero emissions numbers until it does manage to turn on. And even during testing and repairs, those emissions equipment will be fully operable. So this is not a variance for any additional emissions or a change in emissions, and nothing of that nature. It's simply an extension of the testing dates, and the machine will be inoperable during that time. So that concludes my opening statement. I don't know if I should go straight to testimony or.
We're going to take, what normally happens is that we will be taking the other attorney from the district, and then after that, we will introduce the witnesses.
Great, thank you.
So, thank you, Ms. Shim. Okay, Ms. Hannah Zavara.
Good morning, Chair and members of the board. The district understands that this particular variance is necessary to repair the equipment and ensure continued work at the facility. And we also understand the potential supply chain issues that are causing certain delays to the process. So, subject to the district's proposed conditions, which we've shared with the petitioner, and also the evidence and the testimony that's presented today, the district does not oppose the request for a regular variance. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hannah Zavara. Okay, Ms. Shim, you want to introduce your first witness?
Yes, I'd like to introduce Ian Guthrie with LADWP. So let's go ahead and get started.
Okay, before we do that, before each witness does begin, they need to verify that they did take the oath, give their name, spell it, and then give their title and how long they've been with the organization.
Okay, sounds great. So Mr. Guthrie, could you please spell your name?
Yes, yes, I did take the oath. My name is Ian Guthrie, and that is IANGUTHRIE.
Great. And could you tell me your title or position with the department?
Yes, my title is the facility manager or plant manager.
And what are your job duties?
I'm responsible for the operation and all the supporting support that goes along with operating the facility.
Okay. And could you tell me a little bit about your educational background?
Yes, I have a undergraduate degrees in psychology and also mechanical engineering and a master's in business administration as well.
Okay, great. And so would it be fair to say that there are about 170 people that work at Haynes Generating Station, the facility?
That's correct.
And would it be fair to say that you supervise all of them?
Yes.
Okay. And are your personnel responsible for the operation and maintenance of all the equipment used to produce electricity from Haynes Generation?
Yes.
Okay. And would that be 24 hours a day, 365 days a year?
Yes.
Okay, great. So I'm just going to move through the findings that we're required to meet. So I just want to switch over to finding number 1. And that is that the petitioner for the variance is or will be in violation of section 41701 or of any rule, regulation, or order of the district. Can you please tell me about Haynes Generating Station and the importance of Unit 15?
Yeah, Haynes Generating Station is owned and operated by the LA Department of Water and Power. It's a natural gas facility. It is roughly 122 acres, and we're located in Long Beach, California, effectively, and we have roughly 1,667 megawatts of generating capacity. We have 2 conventional steam units, units 1 and 2. We have 2 combined cycle units, which are units 9 and 10, and then we have 6 simple cycle generating units, which are units 11 through 16.
Great. And can you tell us just more about Unit 15 and how it like, you know, what makes Unit 15 special?
Unit 15 is one of our simple cycle or aeroderivative gas turbines. What's important about these particular units is that they are a very quick start gas turbine, so they can start up and get to full generating capacity within 10 minutes. And they're essential for effectively being able to supplement or complement, I guess is the better word, the renewable resources that we have. As the solar drops off in the evening at different times, depending on what time of the year it is, we rely on these quick start gas turbines to be able to pick up the load and help carry the demand. And when there are a lot of fluctuations in the overall generation or energy demand, I guess, across the region, these types of units are necessary to be able to respond quickly.
Okay, great. So I want to move into sort of the events that led to the need for DWP to file this petition. When did you first realize that DWP was in violation of the permit?
As soon as we determined that we had a catastrophic event, which happened August 23rd, 2022, and we went through the process to determine the extent of the damage, we worked to try to figure out what our repair plan was going to be to have a replacement set of components for that part of the generating unit. And it was basically in about, I would say, early November that we were advised by General Electric, who's the manufacturer of the machinery, that the repair schedule where there was some damage on our spare component that we were going to install to restore unit 15 back to service had some additional damage that needed to be addressed, and that repair for that damage was going to go beyond the December 31st deadline, which would then put us into a violation of our permit condition and the rules associated with that. That's the point when we started the process to work on seeing what our options were, and then requesting to have a variance from that particular condition.
And just to give an idea of scale of unit 15, would it be fair to say that it's how high tall would you estimate it to be?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
How would you estimate sort of the dimensions of unit 15 and how big the supercore part is? Let's start with that.
The supercore portion of the gas turbine is probably about the size of maybe a semi truck, perhaps. It's not as large as our old conventional steam generating units. They're much more compact. But it's I guess maybe the best analogy would be it'd be similar to like a 747 jet engine, perhaps. About the size of that. Okay.
So I wanted to get into how DWP will be in violation of any rule as required by finding number 1. Could you please run through the rules that DWP will be in violation of by the end of this year, or is presently going to be in violation of?
Yeah. So we have our permit to operate. That's our basically our air operating permit. Condition D 82.3 requires us to have a SEMS, which is installed, SEMS being the continuous emission monitoring system, installed and operated in accordance with Rule 218 and the application. And the SEMS QA plan that was submitted to AQMD for approval at the time that the units got the initial notice to proceed and permit to operate included that annual CO RATA requirement. We also have Rule 203B, which I believe states that the equipment shall not be operated contrary to the conditions specified in the permit to operate. Because we have the permit condition D 82.3, which requires us to have that CO RATA as part of the QA plan, then we believe that that would be a violation of that rule. We also have, which I think was corrected, Rule 218. I'm sorry, this isn't that one. Rule 218B2, the owner or operator of any equipment subject to this rule shall provide, properly install, operate, and maintain in calibration and good working order a certified SEMS to measure the concentration and/or emission rates as applicable of air contaminants and dilutant gases, flow rates, and other required parameters. And so basically what that's saying, I think for us, is that if the CO RATA wasn't actually performed by December 31st, then Haynes, our generating unit, Haynes Unit 15, would not be maintained to measure the CO concentration appropriately. And and then we also have Rule 218.1 B4C, which references that RATA and RAA, as applicable, shall be performed at least once every 12 months. Tests shall be completed annually, no later than the end of the calendar quarter in which the date of the original certification test was performed. And so this CO RATA, that time frame would be this fourth quarter of 2022. So that would be due by December 31st in our case for Unit 15 here. Rule 2004 F1, facility permit holder shall at all times comply with all rules and permit conditions applicable to the facility as specified in the facility permit. And again, since we hadn't performed the CO RATA during this previous, I guess, 11 months of 2022, this would put us out of compliance with that. Rule 3002C1, person shall construct and operate Title V facility and all equipment located at a Title V facility in compliance with all terms, requirements, and conditions specified in the Title V permit at all times. And so in light of this, Haynes Unit 15 CO or carbon monoxide SEMS will not be in compliance with that permit condition, which was D 82.3, which would basically put us in violation of this particular rule. So I think overall synopsis is that we have a permit requirement that requires us per our QA plan to have the CO RATA performed annually. And in our case, it's due by the end of December of 2022. That would be by December 31st, 2022. And since we're not operable and capable of doing that, that would then potentially put us in, or would put us in violation of this rules associated with that.
Great, thank you. I know that was a lot to get through. So I just want to go into a little bit more detail about why it will take sort of, why can't this simply be repaired by the end of the year? And so I just wanted to go a little bit more into the incident. So what exactly happened on August 23rd, 2022?
Yeah, so unfortunately, the phenomena that occurred is referred to as a stall event. And without getting too technical, the normal airflow through a gas turbine or a jet engine, which is very similar, obviously, to a gas turbine, is, the flow goes from the inlet or front side through to the exhaust side. That would be the normal way that air flows through the particular machine. In a stall event, what's happened is, for some reason, something has occurred which has caused the airflow to go the opposite direction. So it's not the normal flow inlet to outlet. An upset has occurred, which then creates this situation that then affects the way that the machinery is actually operating, which then creates a lot of potential for damage. So what we've observed is that for whatever reason, which is still currently under investigation at this point, working with General Electric, there appears to be a vulnerability in what's referred to as the high pressure stage or compressor section of this supercore, where the air is coming in and being compressed to a high pressure before it's then expanded and mixed with combustion fuel to then drive the generating unit. And in this vulnerability, they've found that some of the blades have had the potential to basically break off and then destroy the machine. So that's what we observed. We got an initial alarm and the machine, had tripped offline, basically indicating there was a stall event. So our first, unfortunately, when that happens, it's kind of like the worst thing that happens when that type of alarm comes up when you're operating, because it's never going to be a good situation. So as soon as that happens, then we go and do this horoscope inspection, which is effectively taking a camera and going through different stages of the machine to be able to inspect and see the extent of damage there. And what we found was that it was a lot of internal blades, rotating blades. If you could imagine like a pinwheel or a fan, just mangled and smashed and broken apart, and the stationary components that correspond with those in the same type of condition. So what we believe happened is that one of the blades in the high pressure compressor section broke off, then created this sort of cascading chain of events to cause the stall event, which then renders the unit inoperable. So the repair for that is to effectively take the whole engine portion out, the supercore they call it, which consists of the high pressure compressor, the combustion section, and a high pressure turbine and an intermediate pressure turbine component. All of that can be removed. And again, it looks very similar to the way a jet engine might look that's under the wing of an airplane. That can be removed But for that level of damage that was observed, it has to go back to General Electric's Houston repair facility to be overhauled. And one of the biggest challenges we've been facing working with General Electric regarding this increased concern regarding these compressor failures on these engines is that there is a huge parts availability problem. And it's also being impacted by their aviation sector as well. So they're really behind on manufacturing a lot of these parts, which are necessary to repair or restore these units to service. And they're kind of having their power group fighting with their aviation group on availability of some of the similar parts, or at least the manufacturing capabilities that would make the same types of parts for these engines.
Okay, great. And so I just want to briefly just go over the repair plan. And has DWP plotted or planned a repair plan once the repaired supercore is received?
Absolutely. We put together a pretty aggressive schedule based on our experience on swapping out these supercores. We're expecting to receive or GE is expecting to ship based on their repair cycle, roughly February 24th or 5th in that time frame. So we're expecting that based on taking receipt of that engine the following few days later, our process to go ahead and reinstall the components and basically bring out all of the instrumentation, all of the electrical, everything that's required to install it mechanically and electrically, and then to be able to go through and make sure all of the systems are back functional, do a startup process, and then effectively once we know we're ready to start up, have our source test contractor on the ready for being able to do the emissions testing that we need to catch up on.
Great. And has Unit 15 undergone and had all of its regularly scheduled maintenance?
Yes, yes, it has.
Okay, great. And so just to make clear, why is the variance time period until the end of June?
There's still uncertainty, obviously, since a lot of the engine repair is out of our control. It's in GE's control. That is their best estimate for us right now. But I think a lot of the delivery of the supercore, the repaired supercore, is going to be up to General Electric. And so based on that, I think we have a lot of, we've built in some amount of float in the schedule as a result of things that we can't control. Everything that we can do with the reinstallation and startup process, I think that we have a realistic schedule on. That said, we also have accounted for the availability of the RADA test contractor at that point in time as well. So I think there's just a little uncertainty in some of the factors that are outside of LADWP's control, which is why we've looked at the end of the second quarter as a realistic timeframe to have everything completed.
Okay, so would it be fair to say that the catastrophic failure of the supercore was beyond LADWP's reasonable control?
Yes.
Okay, and would it be fair to say that GE is the only company that can repair the damaged supercore?
Yes, yes.
Okay, and would it be fair to say that we have no control over when they can deliver the repaired supercore?
Yes.
Okay, and once received, that it'll take about 6 weeks in our best estimates to install and get Unit 15 running once we receive that repaired supercore.
Yes.
Okay, great. I am going to move to finding number 2, and that is that due to conditions beyond the reasonable control of the petitioner, requiring compliance would result in either an arbitrary or unreasonable taking of property or the practical closing and elimination of a lawful business. How is non-compliance beyond LADWP's reasonable control?
Due to the damage associated with our generating unit, which were a result of this catastrophic failure, and the timing of the repair or the long duration repair process, LADWP cannot comply by December 31st.
Okay, and how would not obtaining this variance result in either an arbitrary or unreasonable taking of property, the closing and elimination of a lawful business, or an unreasonable burden on an essential public service?
I believe that, you know, we would end up with a effectively be in violation of our permit to operate the generating unit as a result of not being able to receive the variance for this condition by December 31st.
Okay, great. Moving to finding number 3, which is that the closing or taking would be without a corresponding benefit in reducing air contaminants. How is it that not giving LADWP this variance would result in a closing or taking that is without a corresponding benefit in reducing air contaminants?
I'm sorry, can you ask that question one more time?
Sure. It's basically a question about whether the unit is running right now. So how is it that if DWP were not receive this variance, how would that result in a closing or taking that is without a corresponding benefit in reducing air contaminants?
Since the unit is not actually running, whether or not we receive any variance, we're not creating any emissions. There's no combustion process occurring. So therefore there wouldn't be any type of impact as a result of not getting variance.
And is all the regular emission equipment continuing to run even now?
Yes.
And it is continuing to report according to all the rules and requirements that DWP is subject to?
Yes.
Okay, great. So, moving to finding number 4, that the applicant for the variance has given consideration to curtailing operations of the source in lieu of obtaining a variance. So my question to you is, has LADWP given consideration to curtailing Unit 15 in lieu of obtaining a variance?
Well, Unit 15 is not operational due to the damage and the delays and long duration in getting repaired components. So it's not in operation.
And if I had to ask you about how much does Unit 15 cost? Like if you were to purchase this equipment from like the whole thing, what would be its sort of approximate value?
If you were to buy a brand new LMS 100 generating unit, it would be roughly $50-some million for the generating unit.
Would it be fair to say that DWP is unable to completely take Unit 15 out of operation over this repair?
Yes.
Okay, and if you had to estimate the repairs, I know repair shops can give you one quote and it may come back with a higher one, but at this time, do you have an approximate idea of how much it will cost to repair the damaged supercore?
Yes, I think our estimate for this particular damage is between I think $7 and $10 million right now.
Okay, so would it be fair to say that DWP is willing to make the significant investment of the repair because of the value of Unit 15?
Yes.
Okay, and okay, let's move to finding number 5. During the period the variance is in effect, the applicant will reduce excess emissions to the maximum extent feasible. How does DWP intend to reduce excess emissions?
So again, Unit 15 is inoperable. So during the period of time while this variance is in effect, the unit will not be combusting fuel or creating any emissions. We'll continue to have the CO or carbon monoxide SEMS or continuous emission monitoring system in service and operable and reporting and recording data. I think validating or demonstrating that. And we've also performed an offline CO cylinder combustion gas audit or CGA to again test and demonstrate that the CO SEMS is collecting accurate data. And we'll continue to be in that mode of operation until the repaired components come back and we can put the unit back in service.
Great. And our final finding, During the period the variance is in effect, the applicant will monitor or otherwise quantify emission levels from the source if requested to do so by the district, and report these emission levels to the district pursuant to a schedule established by the district. Will LADWP be able to comply with this requirement?
Yes.
Okay, and are you aware of the communications between AQMD regarding conditions of this variance permit if granted?
Yes.
And do you feel confident that we can comply with all of those conditions?
Yes.
Okay, great. And okay, I think that concludes our DWP's testimony. I don't know if there's any questions that any of the board would like to ask, or any other questions anyone might have, but that concludes our testimony.
Thank you, Ms. Shim and Mr. Guthrie. What the process is that we normally will then entertain questions from the district, and then that will be followed by questions from the board members. So Ms. Hannah Zavara, if you can go ahead and start your questioning, please.
Sure. I only have one question for Mr. Guthrie, and you know, you may or may not know at the moment. Would GE give any sort of heads up in advance if they're unable to make that February 24th, 25th deadline? And have they given any indication that that's a reasonable deadline? I guess that's a compound question, but.
Yeah, I think the answer to both is yes. We've been in close contact with in communication with GE, especially over this particular situation, and in regards to the fact that we were going to have this, permit compliance concern. And so, yeah, we very much have their process is a fairly, it seems like a pretty rigid process where, like batch processing of this repair. And they have, various gates, as they refer to them, where you kind of complete a certain amount of work. And then, there's a sort of a standard time frame associated with that. And then there are, components that have to be repaired or replaced as a result. And then it goes into a next phase. So there are opportunities still at milestones for us to still work through with GE, opportunities for them to be able to report on the schedule and the time frame associated with the repair cycle. And I think we'll continue to be able to have close communication about that, so that we know that it's, so I guess to answer your questions, yes, we know we've been in close contact to discuss the schedule. And yes, I believe that we will know in advance, not just surprise on like the 23rd of February, hey, we're delayed another month. I don't anticipate that situation. It'll be as we pass through these gates here in the next, for basically 4 or 5 weeks.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful. That's all the questions I have for this witness.
Thank you. Board members, do you have questions? Mr. Balagopalan?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Guthrie, good morning. I liked your description in the email you sent November 10 to GE, where you said that the damage was significantly and beyond repair after a turbine compressor blade liberated. I think that's, I read that, it was like, oh, it was very colorful description. But anyway, you provided a boroscope report, and looking at that, it was like watching a Game of Thrones movie. All the scenes are so dark you can't read anything. It's like, and in fact, most of the exhibits are pretty much that way. I went on the website. I thought maybe it was a color one, but it was not. But I think in the future it would help if you're going to provide all this information, a color, so we can actually see what that is you're referring to. So I do have some questions regarding that. Is the unit tagged out, logged out?
Yes.
And what procedure do you have to do that?
We follow our LADWP operating orders, and our standard operating orders. Effectively, it's an isolation process where we would, in the real world, you would use lockout, tag out, we effectively use a tag and card system, but effectively we're isolating the gas supply to the unit. We're isolating all of the electrical interconnections to the connection of the unit to the grid, pretty much providing any, eliminating any mechanical or electrical potential energy that could happen or could be, there within the machine to be able to, safely disconnect components and remove components and pieces of the machine to be able to, prepare for the, repair and then reassembly process.
So would there is in one of the rules 218.2 some language on some of the steps you have to take, and there's been used in the past in some of the similar cases. So I'm going to ask you, has the fuel fuel line been disconnected and a blind flange added to prevent free flow?
Yes.
Okay. And you can demonstrate there's no fuel flow with a flow meter, correct?
That's correct.
And that's one of the conditions that is proposed. Okay. And then and I think one of the other conditions proposed is to provide usage records of the fuel, correct?
Yes.
If there's any fuel flow or not, gas bill showing zero fuel consumption for that unit.
Yes.
And then can you also demonstrate that it's not operational based on stack flow monitoring?
Yes, the SEMS, whether it was the NOx or SEMS, CO SEMS would both effectively have minute, hourly, daily emissions through to the point where we've completed the repair process.
Okay, so I think you're pretty much doing that. Not all of it is laid out in the conditions, but let me ask you some follow-up question. I'm looking at your petition and item 16 on some of the steps you're going to take to bring the, once you receive the supercore and the steps you're going to take to repair it. Now, my question is, why are you waiting until you receive the repaired supercore before removing the unit and then assessing the damage?
So we've actually removed the supercore, the damaged one. I think at the time that we were preparing the variance documentation, we were trying to work out sequencing our maintenance personnel as well as the availability of General Electric's technical support that's necessary. They have some specialty equipment and tooling as well as technical advisors that our maintenance personnel utilize to be able to extract the engine component and remove it from the actual generating unit. And so at the time that it occurred, it was just a function of getting the available personnel and tools on site more than anything to be able to remove those particular components. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, no. So you have done that already, even though and have you then seen more damage that might delay further, that might need additional repairs, more components?
At this point, I would say no. And the reason is that the damaged engine that's being removed is likely going to take a very long time to repair in light of the component availability. Right now, we're waiting for our spare engine to be repaired, finished repair to be installed. So the particular equipment that's coming out will then begin the repair process as soon as we can get what GE refers to as an induction date. Similar to when you take your car to the dealership to be serviced and they provide you, hey, do you want to come in at 7:30 this morning? Or that's sort of the window that you can start the process. Only unlike a car repair place, GE is a lot more rigid about being able to have enough, space in their facility to accommodate the disassembly process and then the, inspection and then the subsequent repair process.
So it does appear from your petition, you had two supercores, almost like standby, but unfortunately they will also need a repair. So that's why you have to wait till you can swap them. And
yes.
So which supercore are you going to put, the 878-125 first?
That's correct.
So you have done this swapping for other units previously, right?
We have, yes.
Now, the other question I had is, you said in that one of the items you have to do is a replacement of the power turbine. Because that also was damaged too?
Yes, there is basically the collateral damage from some of the components in the broken off pieces went downstream, followed the air path down, and then ultimately make their way to the last stage of the generating of the turbine, really, which is the power turbine. And yeah, it's evidently they're not as robust as the older machines used to be. So yeah, they seem to be damaged often if this type of phenomena occurs.
And they're separate from the supercore, but you also have replacement turbine, power turbine.
Yes, we do have a spare power turbine.
Power turbine. Okay. I do have a question on the permit, but are you the right person to ask, or the rules that apply to the permit, or is there somebody from the environmental group who can answer that? I just want to know the Unit 15. We didn't get a copy of that permit, Unit 15, and if there are any federal rules that are already applicable to that unit.
Federal rules applicable
to that Unit 15, yeah. Subpart KKKK 4Ks.
I don't have the answer for that right off the top of my head.
Okay, was there somebody else who can answer that?
We do. Let me have her introduce herself, and she took
Okay,
the oath.
wait, let's, Ms. Shim, let's wait and finish with this witness completely, and then we'll go to other witnesses.
I have no further question for Mr. Guthrie.
Okay. Any other questions, board members, for this witness? Okay, I had just a few. Mr. Guthrie, based on the fact that GE is a provider of engines and parts to most of the electric generating organizations, not just here in California, but throughout the United States, do you have an idea that February date is a very believable, maybe that's the better word, believable, because of the fact they have such a long wait for parts? Do you know where in the queue you are of all of the organizations that are requiring and requesting parts?
Yeah, I have a high level of confidence with this particular date. I think one of the biggest it almost seems like, I don't know, I don't have a really good analogy necessarily off the top of my head to describe it, but it's hard to get the window to get your equipment into their repair facility. Mm-hmm. But once it's in the repair facility, I don't know that they have a lot happening concurrently. And so I think they kind of do have a fairly realistic time frame to get from start to finish, unless they found something that was so problematic when they did the disassembly of the equipment. In this particular case, the damage that was observed on our spare supercore was not something that was components that were long lead time components. They just unfortunately required the full disassembly of the supercore to actually repair. So they were components that are, fairly available, but nonetheless, it still takes, the full number of days. In this case, I think their standard repair cycle is around 120 days for, the process for these. But again, like I said, I think it's a pretty realistic time frame for this particular situation.
How often are you in contact with them?
We're in contact with the General Electric, I would say, pretty much daily.
Oh, okay, good. Okay, and so your estimated date that you will be in compliance then is 06/23 of next year, giving you a 2-month window from the date that you're expecting delivery of the parts to compliance date. Have you put in any cushion of time in there just in case there may be something else that goes wrong?
Yes. Yeah. I think that definitely has that float or cushion built in to be able to allow for, again, that a little bit of uncertainty with both General Electric and the repair process, and then the subsequent, RADA test contractors that are necessary for us to actually successfully complete the required testing.
Great. Okay, thank you. That's all the questions I had for this witness. And I don't believe the board members have any other questions for this witness. So Ms. Shim, you can go on to your next witness, please.
Great, thank you. I'd like to ask Andrea Villarind to take herself off mute. Great. Could you confirm that you were able to take the oath, Ms. Villarind?
Yes, I did.
Could you also spell your name and let us know what your work title is?
Sure. It's Andrea, A-N-D-R-E, Villarin, V-I-L-L-A-R-I-N.
Great.
And my title is Air Quality Manager.
Great. I hope there's a little bit of connectivity, so hopefully that resolves. But could you tell me about your job duties and role at DWP?
Yes, so we make sure that our facilities are always in compliance with their permits and applicable air rules. We also monitor different rules and regulations and participate in rulemaking.
Okay. And are you familiar with whether any, as I believe the question was, whether any federal rules apply in this instance?
Right. In response to Mr. Balagopalan's question, I believe subpart KKKK, which is for performance standards for stationary combustion turbines, particularly NOx emissions, does apply to Haynes Unit 15.
Does that carry any implications here with Unit 15 not running and not being operable?
Because we're not emitting, we are not in violation of the emissions limits.
Okay, great. That concludes my questioning.
Okay, and Ms. Villarind, can you please restate your title because I didn't catch that?
Sorry, it's Manager of Air Quality.
Thank you. Okay, Ms. Hanna-Zevera, do you have questions for this witness?
I have no questions for this witness. Thank you.
Thank you. Board members, anybody have questions for this witness? Okay. I don't either. And Ms. Shim, did you have another witness?
No, that concludes our testimony.
Thank you. Okay. Ms. Hanna-Zevera, do you have any witnesses that you wanted to present?
I have two witnesses on standby, Jay Benju, an air quality engineer 2, and Nathaniel Wilson, air quality inspector 2. I don't have any affirmative testimony or witnesses to present, but they are here in case the board has any questions.
Okay. Did you have any questions of either of those representatives of the district, Ms. Shim? I don't see her.
No, I do not. Thank you.
Okay. Board members, did you require any clarification and or have questions for any of the district personnel? I don't see Mr. Belagopoulos. Did he drop off?
I believe he did.
Okay, we're gonna have to wait till he comes back.
He's back.
Trust me, we know he has a question.
That's why I'm saying we've got to wait till he comes back. And there you are.
There he is.
Mohan, did you have any
Hold on, I got
questions?
nervous.
Did you have any questions either for Ms. Villarind and or well, first let's start with her. Did you have any questions for her? You're muted, sir. You're totally muted. Still can't hear you. You may have to call in and or go out and then come back in. I'm trying to lip read here.
Yeah, it looks like he's gonna go out and come back. Okay, Mohan, can you hear us?
Yeah. Yes, I can. Can you hear
There
me?
we go.
Yeah.
There we go.
Okay.
Okay, great. Did
Okay,
you
I
have,
don't know if my background has something to do with it. It says low bandwidth, but I switched my background, but
maybe,
yes, I did have a follow-up. Some Miss Villerin, good morning. I think you answered my one question. You are subject to the federal regulation, and you will continue to be even after you replace the supercore and the power turbine, still be subject to that federal regulation, subpart KKKK, right? 40 CFR 60 subpart KKKK.
That's correct.
And I don't want to go down this rabbit hole, but have there been any discussion with AQMD permitting staff that you need to get a permit or anything for the replacement?
No, we haven't had a discussion.
Okay, all right. Actually, that's all the question I have. I apologize for the delay coming
no
back.
problem.
Okay.
And Miss Hannah Zevera mentioned that she did have the engineers on standby. Did you have any questions for them and or require clarification?
No, I think I think I will do that in my deliberation. I think there was an
Okay.
issue that was sort of came up yesterday, so
Okay, great. All right, with that, since all the witnesses have been completed, and let's now go to closing statements. And before I do that, I don't see any, but I do have to ask if there are any members of the public who have any testimony to provide. And seeing none, we can go ahead and go forward. So Ms. Shim, if you can go ahead and start with your closing statement.
Certainly. So I just wanted to indicate that DWP believes we've been able to meet all of the 6 required findings. And we've included the relevant attachments. And I think the most important one is the email from GE indicating that the time period for the repair will not be until the end of February. And I think this entire variance permit and application sort of revolves around that date. We are sort of stuck with what that date is. And if there was anything we could do to make that come sooner, we would try to do that. As was described in testimony, the unit is completely inoperable. The damage that was done to the unit, as well as the damaged supercore, render it so that it is not, you can't even turn it on. So we do not expect it to be running at all until probably early April. So on that, I am happy to conclude my closing statement.
Thank you. Ms. Hannah Zevera?
Good morning again, Chair and members of the board. Based on the evidence presented here, and I do think that LADWP gave some thorough testimony, and also based on the conditions that have been shared with the petitioner, the district does not oppose the granting of the variance.
Thank you. Okay. All right, we could go to our deliberation, board members. Did you want to go ahead and begin, Mr. Balagopan?
Yes. Yes, I do believe I can make the 6 finding. I think Ms. Shim went through them in detail, and I think she hit all the points. So I do agree. All the 6 findings can be made. I did. I know there was something I forgot. I wanted. I know they changed the applicable rules. I just wanted confirmation from a district that they are not opposed to that changes, and that those are the applicable rules. But I think, yeah, and since they didn't bring that up, so there were some changes to the rules. So, but other than that, I think, and the reason I asked about the permitting was, and I don't want to bring up the case yesterday, but and I did bring up under 219C3, there is an exemption if you're doing an identical replacement. And I think an issue was brought up under S. It says, no, the exemption goes away. However, it doesn't go away because they're still subject to the federal rule. That exemption doesn't remove them from the federal rule. And that was the discussion I had when several years ago when we made that decision for the one particular company. So I think I can make the 6 findings, and I think the conditions that are laid out will ensure that they will come into compliance in a timely manner and also not operate. So I rather would have preferred to see some of the condition that has been used in the past that required the disconnect of the fuel line with the blind flange. But I think the condition number 1 achieves the same thing without the mechanical insertion of the blind flange. But I think we have testimony from Mr. Guthrie that has been done, and they're tagged out, logged out, so there's no accidentally somebody's re-energizing the unit. So I'm okay with the conditions as proposed.
Thank you, sir. Any other comments from board members? Dr. Bernstein?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I also can make the 6 findings, and I also particularly want to congratulate Ms. Shim and her witness, Mr. Guthrie, for actually taking the time of the hearing board and use their time most efficiently to delineate exactly what is necessary to go forward with this case. And I would also make the motion if when appropriate.
Okay. Any other
Mr.
comments
Pearman,
from?
I agree.
Thank you, Mr. Pearman.
Ali, I would also associate myself with the comments of my colleagues and also thank Attorney Shim and company. A phenomenal submittal, very easy to read, concise, which has allowed us to move very efficiently this morning. Again, thank
Mr.
you.
Ali, a color copy would have been better to read. I'm surprised you were able to read those, but
well, no, you know what? You're absolutely right. But it's just, you know, Mr. Balakapalan, it's so much to understand. And when petitioners lay it out,
yeah, no,
just lay out the words. And you're right. You're right about the pictorials. I think they got that picture out of there. They were probably trying to save money on ink. But next time, just go ahead and spend Los Angeles's money. They have tons of it.
Thank you for those comments. I also agree, compared to some of the hearings that we have had, this was the most efficient way of presenting it. And that would be the only caveat, that maybe next time, and hopefully there isn't a next time actually, but if so, that they be actually part of a presentation, PowerPoint presentation possibly, versus a print. And on the ink, I don't know about you, but my printer used up a lot of ink to print out those blackened images. But in any case, it was very easy to follow. Thank you, Ms. Shim, for making sure that we did understand how you were going to comply with the 6 findings. And Mr. Guthrie, many years ago, long ago, I toured that facility, and I appreciate the fact how you went through it to make the rest of my board members understand exactly what you are facing and what is ahead of you, and how you're going to comply, and that you are right on top of it. The fact that you're in touch with GE as often as you are is excellent, and you have to keep on top of them. They do have so many companies that they're trying to respond to. So with that, I agree that we can also, I can also make the 6 findings, and I will turn it over to Dr. Bernstein if you'd like to make the motion. Dr. Bernstein.
Madam Chair. In the matter of Los Angeles Department of Water and Power, located at 6801 East 2nd Street in Long Beach, California, case number 1263-76, facility ID 800074. I move that we grant a regular variance commencing, I believe, in January 1st of 2023 and extending through June 30th of 2023 from the following rules and subsections. Hope I got this right. Permit condition D82.3, Rule 203B, Rule 218B2, Rule 218B4C, Rule 2004F, I can't read, 1, sorry, and Rule 3002C1.
So Bernstein, I'm sorry to interrupt, it was 218.1 B4C.
218B1 4C. Oh, well, thank you, Mr. Balagopalan. I appreciate that. The conditions of the variance will be set forth in Exhibit A as delineated and accepted.
The equipment.
There are no excess emissions, and there is no indication at this time for a status or modification hearing.
Second,
A friendly amendment, Dr. Bernstein, that it is in regards to combustion turbine unit 15.
Oh. Yes, ma'am, I'm sorry. Yes, ma'am, that is the equipment that is in question, unit 15.
Okay,
and if he accepts the amendment, I too will second that for the
Of
record.
course. Yes, ma'am.
thank you, thank you. Okay, with that, we have a motion and a second, and any discussion on it? Seeing no discussion, we'll go ahead and take the vote. Mr. Pearman,
Yes, aye.
Mr. Balagopalan,
Yes.
Mr. Ali,
Aye.
Dr. Bernstein.
No, just kidding. Aye.
Okay, and I also vote aye, so it is unanimous that we are in favor of granting the regular variance to LADWP. And good luck with the repair. Hopefully the parts do get to you on time. I'm keeping my fingers crossed on that one. And thank you very much for the presentation. It was excellent. This is one of the best ones that I think I've seen, and that's a good way to close the year. Thank you also, Ms. Hanna-Zavera, and the staff from AQMD for working with them and making sure that the conditions were exactly what was needed to complete the process. Thank you also to staff, Ms. Rothschild, and the back staff as well. And to my board members, thank you. This has been a wonderful year. You guys have been just wonderful in all of the questions that you've asked, on point, and the discussions that we have had and deliberations that we have had have all been not only very interesting, but very much in the concern of how do we go forward with the rules and regulations that these companies have to comply with, and making sure that they do comply in a very not only just matter of fact, but that it also makes sense to them and their bottom line in many cases, and to the public utilities who do provide a service to the public. And we cannot live without them, obviously, but that the grid is such a fragile thing that it really has to be 24/7 that we have these facilities in operation, especially one like Haynes that does even out the startup of the renewables when they do come online. So thank you, everybody. This has been a very good presentation and a good hearing for today. Happy New Year to everybody. And with that, we are closed with the matter and we are adjourned. Thank you.
Happy New Year, everybody.
Happy New Year.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much, everyone. Happy holidays.
Happy New Year.